Hey guys, welcome to the video and thanks for watching. In this video segment, we're going to keep it light and fun, nothing too serious. This is, in this video segment, we're going to do predictions for point standings and cup chances. Now, some of you are probably thinking, the puck hasn't even dropped away, teams ain't even in camp yet, and you're predicting standings and cup chances. How can you do that so early? You can't do that. Well, I can do that, and I will. And I'm doing it because it's fun, and I can. And I believe it's going to be fairly accurate. I'm not just saying names to say names. With the info from the past and this offseason, seeing what teams are doing, what they have done, some changes coming, whether it's coaching changes or player exchanges. You know, it's SPHL minor league hockey, changes happen. So, with that being said, I'm kind of going to rank these teams starting at the bottom and working my way up. Now, keep in mind, now, say I rank you at the bottom or missing playoffs. That doesn't mean I'm saying 100% you're missing playoffs. I'm just saying you're probably going to be at the bottom. There's a good chance you are missing playoffs. Again, these are just predictions. These ain't facts and just opinions. So just have fun with it. You know, if it's not your thing, cool. But, you know, this is just meant to be fun and kind of give some predictions of this upcoming season, you know? That being said, we're going to get right into it. And like I said, to me, this is more indicative of the chances of a team raising a cup than point standings itself. When it comes to the point standings, you know, this is just the area I feel these teams will finish in, give or take a few spots. Just because I say like some teams in the 7th spot doesn't mean I absolutely think they're going to finish in 7th place. But will they probably finish around the 7th place area? More than likely. To me, it's more about chances of winning the cup. You're, in my opinion, ranked 7 and chances of winning the cup. So, again, we'll get right into it. We'll start with the bottom 5, work our way up. So obviously, then we're going to start at number 10, and the first team, in my opinion, to miss the playoffs, which might surprise a few people, but maybe really shouldn't, and that's Pensacola Ice Flyers. The moves they've made this offseason have kind of been a head scratcher. To me, it seems like a complete rebuild, retool year for Pensacola Ice Flyers. They got rid of a lot of their bigger named players, and I don't believe moves are done yet for Pensacola. It's tough to recover from losses like that at any level. Doesn't matter where you're at, from SPHL to NHL. When you ship off a lot of your core players, it takes a minute to rebuild. You don't just come back the next year and you're cup ready. That's typically not how it works. And losing players like Mitchell Atkins and Steven Muddendinger, and just to name a few, like Houston Wilson. I mean, just a lot of players. Malik Johnson. So many players that, for whatever reason, were left off. Pensie's roster traded, whatever. Who knows? Maybe it has something to do with losing in the first round of the playoffs 3 straight seasons, you know, and they're just deciding to blow up the team and start from scratch. Fine, but it's going to take some time to rebuild. You know, to me, they're going to be the new Knoxville Ice Bears of this season and take the biggest step back of any team. With that being said, I'm going to move on to spot number 9, which is slated for the second team to miss the playoffs. This one's tricky. I'm probably going to have fans not happy with me saying this, but I think they take a step back this year. And I'm going to put the Evansville Thunderbolts in that number 9 spot. And you're like, now wait, they just beat the Bulls and was in the playoffs, and a lot of that was Cole Cece. How they finish, how they place, how good they do will write a lot on Cole Cece. It was no coincidence that they were awful. They were an awful team before Cole Cece. The second Cole Cece put on his gear and started for the Thunderbolts, instant turnaround. And that's not a coincidence. Cole Cece, when shooting and playing in the SPHL, is probably the best goalie in the SPHL. So when you have the best goalie, he's obviously going to boost your team. But the question is, how long is he going to be with Evansville? How many games is he going to play with Evansville? He took call-ups last year. Yes, he came back for the playoffs, but he still took call-ups. And, that hurts Evansville a lot because they don't have their number one goalie and best goalie in the league at net. Now, yes, Ty Taylor is a good goalie. I absolutely agree with that. A legit number one. He's still not Cole Cece. So, I believe they take a step back. I don't think they've made that much more improvement to where all of a sudden they're just like a playoff team. They can prove me wrong. They're more than welcome to prove me wrong. There's a chance that I think the best case scenario for Thunderbolts is what they did last year. Get that 8th and final spot in the playoffs. I think that's the best bet for Thunderbolts and their fans. But like I said, we'll have to see, right? You can always prove me wrong. Which means we're up to our first playoff spot, the number 8 seed, and 8th likely to raise the cup. And that's the Macon Mayhem. I think they took a big step forward. New management, new look. Again, they got one of the better goalies of the SPHL, Josh Boyko. Awesome experience at the net. Legit number one goalie and is always keeping Macon Mayhem in games. So, I think they take that step forward and they grab a playoff spot this year. I'm kind of pulling for them to do that. I think it'll be good for them, good for the league. It would be awesome to see Mayhem in the playoffs this year, even if it is an 8th seed. So, again, those are the bottom 3 teams I got. Now, Pensacola Ice Flyers, Mayhem, Bolts, it's all interchangeable. Either one of those 3 teams can finish in 8th, and either one of them 3 teams can miss the playoffs altogether. We'll just have to see how that goes throughout the season, who they add, who they cut, everything. With that, we'll move on to the number 7 spot, and that, I believe, is reserved for Quad City Storm. They are a good team. They're a better team than people give them credit, and they do have go on like these little runs where they play great hockey, these like little 4 or 5 game stretches where they're hard to beat, really tough to beat and playing good hockey, but they always take that step backwards towards the end of the year. And, it was a rough go in the playoffs for them. They won their first game, but lost the last 2 in Roanoke, and I know Quad City Storm fans expect better from their squad, especially with who they had on their squad last year with Brett Moran at goalie and Cole Golka, Leaf Matson. I mean, Logan Nelson, they got players that can score goals and play hockeys, but they're just not getting the results, which is what led to the coaching change. I do think it'll take some time to get used to this coaching change and to kind of develop in a new system. But as the year progresses, I do believe Storm will get better. But I think they're slated for that middle of the pack at best scenario, but more than likely finish around the 7th spot. Moving on to the 6th spot, who I think takes a big leap forward this year from last year, Knoxville Ice Bears. They finished in dead last. For the first time in franchise organizational history, Knoxville Ice Bears finished in dead last. Ended the season on a double-digit losing streak. It was bad. It was bad. Not probably the worst season Ice Bears fans have ever seen. I don't think that's going to happen this year. They've made some great signings in the off season and new additions, and this team is already so much better than the team last year. They are definitely going to improve. They are definitely going to make playoffs. They won't be left out of the playoffs this year. It's going to be a good team there in Knoxville, and it's kind of going to, I think, renew some rivalries with Knoxville, like with Dogs and Havoc and Riverman. I think it's kind of going to renew those rivalries a bit. And so, to me that's the bottom five, and I think that's a pretty solid bottom five. I think most people would have those teams in their bottom five. You'll see them go up and down in the standings all year long, but at the end of the season, I think you will find these teams in the area where I predicted they would be. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move into the top five. The top five teams, starting with number 5, Fayetteville Marksmen. I believe they're going to be a middle-of-the-pack team all season long. Going to have some big wins, good wins, and they're going to go on some losing streaks and maybe not look so good. This team is known for sending a lot of people up to the ECHL. Probably the most call-ups taken is from Fayetteville Marksmen. So, they do lose a lot of talented players to call-ups and injury and trades and waiver wire, everything. It's SPHL minor league hockey, but they always seem to hang around the middle. They got a good system there in place, good fan base, great support, and they usually put together a pretty good team. And I think that they can put together a team that'll keep them in the middle of the pack. Number 4, I got the Dogs. The Dogs, I do think, are kind of take a slight step back, but are still competitive, still finish in the top 5, still make playoffs, and still run off some big wins against teams. But I feel like this is more of a one-and-done team in the playoffs. Honestly, I do. This is a lower-seeded team can upset and eliminate in the first round. So, I don't know. Dogs, again, middle-of-the-pack team, just like Marksmen. Which, now I'll move on to the top 3. Leaves us our top 3 teams. And I think everybody should put these in their top 3. I mean, just what they've done in the past, what they've been doing, what they've done this off season. For me, it was actually very easy to put these guys in my top 3. And you could put them anywhere in the top 3. I mean, legitimately, these 3 teams could finish anywhere in the point standings when it comes to the top 3. But I got Bulls listed as number 3. They're coming off a disappointing playoff run, honestly. They've had 2 good seasons. They've been to the Cups, lost against the Dogs, and then everybody thought they were cup bound this season, and they ended up getting bounced out of the first round by the Bolts. One of the biggest upsets, in SPHL history. 9 out of 10 times Bulls beat the Thunderbolts. To me, it's still crazy that the Bolts were able to get by them. And again, I think you can thank a goaltender named Cole Ceci why you got by the Bulls. But I do believe Bulls will be up there. They probably be in first place at some point in time as well. Austin Lotz is returning with Hayden Stewart. Carson Rose is signed. So when you got a goalie of the year returning and an MVP returning, you're in pretty good shape. So, Bulls are going to be in the top 3, probably in first place at some point. At number 2, I got the Huntsville Havoc. Havoc, I think, took a giant leap forward last year. For the most part, they were a middle-of-the-pack team last year, and that's what I said they would be. But when Dom went down with that injury, it's like a switch flipped in them. And they went from a middle of a pack team to a legit top 3 team and ended up making a final appearance versus the Rivermen. I think they continue that momentum. I think they've made some great moves. They've lost some players to Europe, signing overseas in different leagues and stuff. But they've re-signing Reggie, re-signing Brian Wilson, amongst others. They got a good team returning in Huntsville, and they're coached well. They're a great organization. Um, yeah, they got the players, talent, staff, everything to compete and win in this league. So I look for Havoc to be in the top 3 basically all year long. And they'll probably spend a little time in first. It wouldn't shock me if they spent a little time in first place as well. Which leaves me to believe, which I think is the number 1 team in the league. I wonder who that could be. I'll give you a few hints on who I got as the number 1 team in the league. And I'm sure a lot of you are like, oh, of course you do. Bias as hell. But honestly, guys, if you just look at their overall body of work, what they've done, 2 cups in 3 seasons, who they've got on the docket to return back for another season, it's kind of hard not to favor the Rivermen to repeat as back-to-back champs. You may not like it, you may not want it, may even make you sick to your stomach, but the fact remains Rivermen are probably going to be a top contender and favored to repeat as champions. They'll probably be in first place a lot this year, but honestly, I could care a lot less if we finish first. Would it be a cool story for Rivermen to finish first place and then win a championship? Of course, it's ultimate bragging rights. Not only do you finish first place in the regular season, then you raise a cup in the playoffs. It's the ultimate bragging rights, and what a way to put a stamp on a dynasty. Because, make no mistake, if Rivermen go back-to-back, that's 3 cups in 4 years. It's pretty much the definition of a dynasty, folks. Again, it can make you sick to your stomach. You can hate it all you want, but it doesn't change the facts. So, Rivermen's got a giant target on their back. Everyone's looking to take them out, take them down a peg or 2, and embarrass them. And it's not just the fans. The teams in this league do not want the Rivermen to repeat as champs. Every time you see a series played against the Rivermen this season, it might as well be a playoff series, because I guarantee you, whoever the Rivermen opponent is, they're bringing their A-plus game. And they're going to do what they can to beat the Rivermen, and especially after a season like last year, where they became champions, only lost 1 time in regulation at home. Yeah, teams are going to be looking to make a statement against the Rivermen, and they're going to be ready for them. And Rivermen are going to be ready for them. And that's the thing. I hope teams are ready for the Rivermen, because they're going to come out, they're more motivated than ever. They're not satisfied with 2 championships in 3 years. They want back-to-back cups, and they are more than capable of achieving that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I know a lot of you probably don't agree with my assessment. Some of you probably do. I guess we'll see where all this lands at the end of the year, and we'll see how accurate I was on my rankings. And with that, I always keep it Riverman style, and I'll see you at next puck drop.